So good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, April the 1st, and it is indeed April Fool's Day. And that little skit we played now was just to lighten up a little bit. So obviously, as always, the slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will persevere until we succeed. And today, and it's Augmentino modified. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is an excellent real lesson for us all. It's about patience, persistence, and as Napoleon Hill wrote, patience, persistence, perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success. So we've got, our business is something that helps us to think out the box. It's helped us all to do something that is uncomfortable, but more than anything, it's to look on the long term. It's not an immediate result. It's not something where you measure your return on investment in 3 months or 6 months. This is a long-term thing. It's a project. It's a career move. And so Dan is in New York with Chris Watson, and it's actually a great story. And it's precisely what this business is about. It's exactly what it's about. Just to give you one part of the background, Chris Watson, I think, was a furniture salesperson. He was an excellent salesperson, but selling furniture. And he's now, he saw the possibilities that we have with this business. And Dan has been his guide and mentor there. And so they're in New York, and he'll tell you the story about it, but it's precisely what this business is about. It's about persistence, perseverance, patience. Dan?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I love this topic because there really is no substitute for hard work and perspiration. I've never been successful in anything where I didn't put a tremendous amount of effort, blood, sweat, and tears into it to be successful. And success requires a multitude of factors and characteristics and personality. Patience and persistence are two of those very important requirements for success or to see success. We can learn a lot by being patient also, learning from those around us, listening to those we are working with, allowing autonomy and independence and thinking with our team members. And I do a lot of different things to kind of cultivate these characteristics. I meditate daily. That's where I get my patience from. That's where I get my persistence. That's where I, think about strategy and how I'm going to go about being successful. And so, I just incorporate those daily activities into what I'm doing and all geared towards seeing success. And one of the things that we've been doing, I'll introduce Chris in a minute here, is, Chris and I have been working on a project for about a year. And it's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of time. We've had a lot of strategy meetings, a lot of conversations, leading up to this particular meeting that we had up here in New York City. I would bet we had 30 to 40 strategy calls about how we were going to approach this. And I'm glad we did, but you also need to be prepared for the inevitable that it's never going to go the way that you planned. And so you need to kind of have all of your ducks in a row. You need to plan for A, B, C, D. And I've talked about that in my previous life as a medical device sales rep. We always had a plan A for if things go perfectly. We had a plan B if things didn't go as planned, plan C, plan D, backup instrumentation, backup implants. And so that's kind of been cultivated in me to think that way, no matter what I'm really doing. And so, strategy calls are important to your success, but being patient and creating that strategy, taking into account all the possibilities, having that plan A, plan B, plan C, being patient, persistent in carrying out that strategy, and then not rushing the strategy to meet the needs of your own ego, right? Because you need to really think about, who you're talking to, how you're talking to them, and how you're going to approach this, no matter, if it's plan A, B, C, or D. So with that being said, I want to introduce Chris Watson. Chris is from Hannibal, Missouri. He's been working with us for a little over
about 2 years now.
About 2 years now.
Yeah.
And Chris is, I love working with Chris because he's always thinking about the business. He's always thinking about the strategy. He's always thinking about next steps and what we can do to be successful. And Chris, why don't you just take a minute, tell everybody a little bit about your background, tell everybody how you got introduced to the business, and then how we've been working together and what we're doing up here in New York City.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. And when Lawrence started talking about, I didn't really know what was going to happen in this call, but when he started talking about patience and persistence, my picture was there, I think. It has been a little bit of a little background of myself. I was in the family furniture business for 27 years. And I was a part owner in that. As any of you all probably know, there was a lot of family involved in the store. So it was time for myself to exit. I was talking to my CPA, and he had a good relationship with Ron Whitaker, which I don't know if any of you all know, but he is in Jerry Savage's downline, and I'm under Ron Whitaker. Ron Whitaker is the one that actually brought me into this business, and that was just through my accountant that said, we've got this great opportunity. You need to talk to Ron because he's been talking to me about this. So one thing led to another, and I got out of the ownership in the retail furniture business. I needed to change, and it was September of 2020. Yes, when I actually got into the business. I started working on this project with an optometrist in my hometown that his company had recently been, probably 3 years prior, had been purchased by a venture capital group that had 120 locations already, optometry clinics. And I started talking to him in November of 2020 and introduced the scanner Pharmanex to him, very interested. We've had conversations back and forth. He used to own a 10 clinic group, and this venture capital group bought up all 10 of his clinics. He said, I would have already put this implemented this already in the 10 groups, but I can't make that decision now. And that was a little hard for him because he had been owner of his group for 25 years. So we've gone back and forth for 16 months now, and it has culminated in Dan and myself meeting with their executive team yesterday of this group. Now they own and run 270 eye care clinics all across the country. I would categorize our meeting as going very well. Persistence, I believe, is paid off. We actually have, we're going to have a commitment of signing up the actual mother group here in the next week, Dan, probably
by Monday or Tuesday.
So we will have them actually under us. And we actually, Ken already has a scanner. My optometrist already has a scanner now, but we are going to actually sign up the mother company under myself, and we are starting the process of trying to implement and go through the channels to put this throughout the company.
Awesome. So what's really exciting for me is that we finally had this meeting. I think it went very, very well. The only pushback, and Chris and I, and this goes into that strategy and patience and persistence. We had talked about this so much that we basically nailed it on the head how this meeting was going to go.
That's right.
And we were throwing a curveball when it first started. We got started 5 or 10 minutes late, and then we sit down at the table and we've only got 20 minutes. We got a hard stop at 11:30. So we kind of thrown a curveball and kind of had to rethink how we were going to approach this very, very quickly. There were 5 folks there. We were fortunate enough to have Chris's optometrist from his hometown join us out here. So that was a big benefit to us. The only detriment to us was the fact that they said, well, if Ken's had this in his practice for, 6 months, 9 months, and we haven't seen an increase in vitamin sales with what we're currently using, why is that? And we had to explain to him that, he didn't feel comfortable fully integrating this into his practice without the blessing of the entire group. So,
he was just using the scanner to actually scan some potential AMD patients or pre-AMD patients, just to scan, check their scores. It
was validation for him and validation for his patients. And so now what the group wants to see is they want to see proof of concept in that one particular practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this thing integrated into their practice in the next week, fully integrated, ordering the products, really knocking it out of the park over the next month and a half, increasing supplement sales, scanning patients, showing that the patients are happy with the technology, happy with the supplements. The practice is happy, obviously, is a huge part of it, making sure that Chris does a fantastic job integrating this into the practice. And he has the luxury of being a mile away from the practice. So it should be very, very easy to do that. So we're super excited about what's going on. There's lots of opportunity out there. What's interesting is I came home early last night. Ken and Chris went to a show. And then tell us a little bit about what happened after the show last night, Chris.
In this business, and Dan has kind of told me, Dan has been my mentor, and Dan is, I think I'm using Lawrence's terms, Dan has been a rock star, truly has. So Dan said, I'm going to go back to the room to take care of some business. And he's told me all along, doors open in funny ways. So after the show last night, Ken and I stopped at an establishment, and we kind of bellied up to the bar and we started talking, and the word optometry got brought up in our conversation, and the fella next door to Ken at the bar and his wife, very, very nice people, we found out, they asked if Ken was an optometrist and here for Vision Expo. Yes. And they actually are, I would say, investors, and they're investors, and they're actually opening up 3 large Pearl Visions. I guess Pearl Vision uses the model of franchising. I take it, Dan, is that that's the way I take it. So these are franchisees that they've got on contract to build 3 Pearl Visions, and they asked what I did. I told them, and I've already sent 2 emails back and forth to the fella that this technology looks great. He was very familiar with the research that he had done. He's not an optometrist, he's a businessman. So he had brought up a fellow named John Nolan, which is an optometrist that has done one of our major studies that we refer to a lot in the optometry field. So and I told him that he had done one of the studies validating our product and nutraceuticals, and the guy was like, fantastic, here's my card, give me your information, and we've already talked. So he's in Texas. So who knows what opportunity is around the corner.
Yep.
At any time.
It's always, it's just about having conversations. We talk about that a lot. Lawrence, do you have anything that you'd like to add here?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, when we look at these words like perseverance and persistence, we always talk about stuff like that, but we've got to look into the words. What do they actually mean? What is perseverance? What is persistence? My opinion is that it's an unswerving belief in an outcome. In other words, you really believe that it's going to happen. And, like you were saying, you prepared for this meeting whenever they announced it a few months ago, and you thought out everything for it because you had that unswerving belief in an outcome. And the curveball came along, but because you still have that thing, you didn't sort of say, oh my God, our plan's gone to hell. What are we going to do? Well, there's nothing we can do about it. You still persevere with that. And the other part of this, which Chris had just said, at when he bellied up to the bar, I like that. He bellied up to the bar. We've got this law of attraction, and I really believe that we attract people similar to ourselves. I mean, I honestly don't know anybody that's a real pain in the butt, that's negative, that smokes, that's just an awful person in my life. Maybe I've made a point of not having them near me, but at the same time, we have a law of attraction, and we emit vibes, believe it or not, and the vibes are positive. Chris and at bellying up the bar was probably at the bar was, obviously on high vibe. Yay, things went well. I'm excited and so on. And that's an exciting vibe that's putting out there. And all it takes is one key word for somebody to hook into and say, oh my gosh, that's interesting. And it goes from there. So we've always got to be open to, open to the universe's law of attraction. That's my belief. And if you put it out there, you'll get a result. And the beginning of this thing was also, as you've said, perseverance. The slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will persevere until we succeed. That's the whole mantra of what this is about. It's about staying on the course. It's about not being distracted. It's about no excuses. It's just the end in mind, as Napoleon says. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Dan, positivity, enthusiasm, confidence. Those are three other words that have been my mantra throughout my life in sales. The more enthusiastic and positive that you are, it exudes from you. People can read that. They can feel it.
Yeah.
And the confidence that you have in the product that you are actually promoting is enormous. Nobody wants to see a downer. They feel that you're confident. They feel the enthusiasm. And that's what I've lived, whether I was trying to talk to somebody about buying a sofa, or I'm actually talking to a doc about this. Enthusiasm and confidence.
If you add to that, Chris, passion, because if you've got passion, enthusiasm is passion is enthusiasm on steroids.
Right.
I
agree.
One of the other things is being a product of the product, and Chris is, taking our products. He's had very positive experience with our products. He
absolutely
promotes the products. So if you're not on our products, you need to be on our products, because that helps you build your belief, and then it helps exude that confidence and that excitement and that, all those characteristics that Chris is talking about. But Chris has a family of athletes, right? Very successful athletes. All of his children are very successful, accomplished athletes. So he's obviously exuded those characteristics of patience, persistence, and perspiration to his children. And that's how they've become really phenomenal athletes, and so Chris walks the walk and talks the talk. And, that's one of those things that you need to do. You need to be willing to talk to folks about what we have in a very confident manner.
Yep.
You don't need to know everything, but you need to know enough that you can have a very educated conversation with folks and come across very confident in what we have. And Chris does that day in and day out. Every time we talk about the product, I get more excited about the product because Chris is so excited about it.
Yeah.
Well, integrity is about walking your talk, and integrity will give you credibility. And if you have the integrity by being a product of the product, by believing in what you're doing, by doing what you're doing, by acting as if no one's around. I mean, just being a really upstanding person, and you believe and you do what you do. That's integrity, and you're not showing. It's not a show. It's not something that you do sometimes. It's what you do always. And with your, with the family of sports people, that's the same thing. You lead by example. You lead by being a team member. That's another big part of our business, is being a team member. And this is what allows us to be successful. Integrity brings credibility.
I've always promoted to my children, you've got to be a good teammate. We don't want you to be that guy or that girl. Be a good teammate, be a good leader, be a good person. So good things will happen.
Yep. And it's not just being a, team member. It's being a productive team member. It's being actually a member of the team and being a physical part of the team, and contributing to the team, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Lawrence, any other input, questions? Do you want to take questions from folks?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of minutes. If anybody would like to comment, I think the inspiration for people should be, you don't have to go and look now. Don't all go and look for a furniture salesman. That's not the answer.
No, it isn't the answer.
The answer is, anybody that is successful in what he or she does, look, why are they successful? Because they believe in what they do. I mean, it's one thing to be successful for 6 months. It's another thing. I think you said 27 years in that business.
I was.
Well, that is being really consistent at what you do, and you eventually get to like it and love it and be enthusiastic about it. But success leaves clues about also who the person is, how he or she acts. What sort of a family person is this? What sort of a team member is this? How does this person act? How does he behave, not act?
Right.
So all of these are traits that we look for in the people that we like to associate with. And I think we have the ideal opportunity. And if we just know that we've got this incredible company with these incredible products, the science, the technology, the innovation, my God, that's the passport to the future. That's the passport to the future. And the window to the future is preventive medicine. We're in the right time, at the right place, with the right business, and we're forming the right team. And this is what I believe it's about. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because there's no downside, none whatsoever. No downside. The only downside is the cobwebs that we create in our own minds.
So Chris and I spent yesterday afternoon kind of touring the city a little bit. We did a tour of the Intrepid, which is an aircraft carrier that was built back in 1943, saw action in World War II and a number of other things. But there was a security guy on that boat that was probably one of the best employees I've ever seen. You just take you think of that security on a tourist attraction like that, the guy could just probably sit there and rest on his laurels and not do anything. This guy was running up and down the deck, making sure that people weren't using selfie sticks. He's like, you can't use that on here. How many times did we hear him yell at somebody telling them they can't?
Quite a few.
And we're like, well, what's the big deal? And he's like, too many people get hurt because they're not watching what they're doing because they're filming themselves. Nobody's getting hurt on my deck. I mean, it was just like, this guy was awesome. His name was Gerald. I'll never forget him.
Yep, Gerald.
He was doing just a phenomenal job at what he was doing, and he took it very seriously, and he was passionate about making sure that nobody got hurt on his watch. I mean, it was just, we sat there, we talked to him for a couple of minutes. We're like, man, I've never seen anybody do it. You know, you're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, it was just really interesting to watch this guy. You know, we should have asked him how long he's been doing that.
Right.
Because it would have been interesting if he'd been doing it for 20 years and he still has that same passion for it. That would have been even more exciting. But, you know, you never know where somebody, you know, that's the kind of person that we should be looking for in this business. Somebody that's really passionate about what they do, and transferring that passion and that success over to what we do. You know, success is transferable. That's the cool thing about success. If you're successful in one thing, you just take those characteristics that made you successful in that and transfer it over to something else, right? If it's patience, persistence, and perspiration, that's what made you successful in being a security person on a tourist attraction. Take that to something else, apply those same exact characteristics, and more than likely you're going to see success in that new area of life.
When I was a kid, my dad used to say, whatever you do, give it your all.
Right.
Do it well. And if you do it well, you can be proud of what you've done. And if you've got that feeling, which is, you know, we go this ego's good, ego's bad, all of these other things, but the ego is what drives us. And if we do something well and we feel proud of it, that reflects in our enthusiasm of who we are and how we act and behave, behave and so on. So, yeah, I mean, your friend over there on the Intrepid, you know, he was obviously passionate about it, and he wanted to do it well. So even the small things, doesn't matter what the person does, just do it well. Doesn't matter who we are.
He was watching everybody on that ship. I mean, Chris and I were getting ready to leave, and he literally ran down the deck of the ship and said, hey, you guys, did you go downstairs yet? Did you go down and see the anchor room?
Right.
We're like, no, we didn't know there was an anchor room. He's like, oh, you got to see that. I want you to get your money worth. You got to go down there. You know, so he was making sure that everybody was having a good time. Everybody was seeing everything. You know, he wasn't just doing security. He was, you know, he was just a phenomenal human being. He was really, really nice, a huge, you know, gentle giant type guy. It was just a pleasure to meet him.
Yeah.
Took ownership of his ship. There you go. Ownership of his ship.
You didn't recruit him, Dan? What's wrong with you?
Should have. There's still an opportunity. We could go back there today.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody got anything else? By the way, Chris, thank you. Congratulations, Chris,
Thank you.
for your
We're on our way. We're on our way.
Absolutely on the way. Congratulations, Dan, also. Does anybody have anything they want to add or comment?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. I just want everybody to know that they've met a new leader in our group today with Chris. He's phenomenal. I've watched what he and Dan have done here, and everything that they spoke about today is the way they live their lives. So welcome a new leader to our group.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good job. Ditto. Yeah,
Right.
a new leader is born.
Yep.
Well, it's a leader that came in as a leader, it sounds like. But
Yeah.
Chris, I got a question for you.
Sure.
You know, you're sitting there at the table in New York City with some VC guys,
Yep.
having spent 27 years trying to sell Mabel some new furniture. Did you think about that? Had that thought crossed your mind? What got you to that table?
Yes, I had, and it goes back to and like Lauren said, the passion, the way I treat people. I treated people always with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
And the fella, the optometrist that lived in my hometown, I'd sold him furniture 20 years ago. We weren't great friends. His wife and my wife know each other, went to high school together. But I had a great relationship. I'm a fixture in our community. I like to think I have a good reputation in the community. And I told when I made the occupational change, he was like, hey, and he knew the fellow that actually had introduced it to me, and he said, hey, if he had talked to you about this, and I said, Ken, I wouldn't do anything if it wasn't going to be unbelievable. And I said, everything that I've seen, I'm all in. And one thing led to another. It took a little longer than I wanted it to, and like anybody would want it to, but yes. And when I'm sitting at the table with Dan, with these people, I'm going, what, look what this is, look what's happened. And,
Yeah.
and now we're on the verge of signing 270 clinics.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Did you take that optometrist out to Provo?
He has not gone, but we have the invitation. Hopefully we will all be there in May.
Yeah. Okay.
We are some people from the executive team that we met with.
Yeah.
That is the plan. We're going to get at least a handful of us. Yes.
You've been out there, have you not?
I have not been.
Oh, really?
I have not been. So that will be when I first go. I was going to go, what was it? When was the last one?
A couple months ago.
Yeah.
January, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go, obviously, children activities, athletic events, kind of, I've got a senior in high school, so that kind of jumped in the road, but yes, I'm planning on being there in May.
Yeah.
And hopefully with the team of this group, and I'm actually in the process of building more of a team under myself to help manage this group.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to.
I can't do it myself.
Yeah, it's going to be a monumental task.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations so far. I don't want to congratulate you on the end game because I don't want to squelch the deal, you know?
Right. It's work in progress, but we are trending the right way. Yes.
And I hadn't met this doctor.
Right.
Chris has been talking to him. Chris has been talking to him about me. And Chris, was really looking for a way to get us together because he thought we were going to hit it off. He's a cyclist. He's he likes the outdoors. We kind of similar kindred spirits. And
yes,
from the second they get off the plane and I picked them up at the airport, it was kind of like we all hit it off. So it was a great weekend. And
it's just a good fit. The synergy was very good. They just took off walking and left me in the dust. So I'm like, go get them. That's fine.
Well, don't forget, guys, this is a business about relationships.
Yes, it is.
And
the bottom line, it is.
It's all about relationships. It's how you make people feel, and it's how you make them feel, and what you say, and all these things. So good job, guys. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And blessings and total success.
all right.
Anybody else got anything?
Appreciate it.
Nobody else. Okay. Well, Dan, Chris, thank you so much.
You bet.
For your comments, and everybody, thank you. Well, congratulations. Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
God bless. Take care. Have a good weekend.